As Christians today, how do we interface with the teaching of Jesus in a way that we hear God speaking to us in all of its immediacy? We hear it as God's Word to us. How do we live in this part of the Bible and embrace it with our lives?
Yeah, and I think it's easy to hear the epistles because they're written to churches, and we're a church, we're the church, and so it sounds like the same language. But then Jesus sometimes sounds rather esoteric. You know, Jesus is talking to his people and teaching in ways that we say, well, how does that apply to me today? But I think we need to recognize that Jesus is basically communicating the heart of God and the values that God values. You read the Sermon on the Mount and you realize that this is radically new teaching based on the way the world views things. The world says, blessed are the rich, blessed are the powerful, blessed are the mighty. And Jesus says, blessed are the poor, blessed are those who are hungry, blessed are the oppressed. And so Jesus takes the world's values and turns them upside down. And we realize that God's values aren't necessarily typical human values.
So they become a measure for us of our value system. We can ask as we read the teachings of Jesus, are my values more in line with what we see here as God's values, or are my values really more worldly?
Absolutely. And I think the application of the Bible is discerning the heart of God in the text. What is God? How does God want us to live? Who is God? Who are we in relationship to Him? And I think, take a side trip, I think we need to read the epistles the same way. Because too often we read the epistles and we think, okay, well, everything the epistles say applies to me because Paul's writing to a church. Everything Jesus says we're not really sure about. But ultimately, it's all about discerning the heart of God. We read the epistles, yet we don't usually require women to cover their heads in worship, even though that's commanded in the epistles. Well, the goal is not to do everything commanded in the epistles. The goal is to discern the heart of God. What are God's values that are coming through this command given to people 2,000 years ago?
Now, I'm going to push back just a little bit.
Please.
When you talk about Jesus' teaching being esoteric, I know exactly what you mean by that. I love the statement by C.S. Lewis, though, when he said that Jesus never dealt in vague, idealistic gas. He had a way of getting down to where the rubber meets the road, and to live out the values of the kingdom, you need to do things that are very tangible. So can you speak to that Jesus' teaching also, in a radical way at times, pushes us in our cultural context to think radically about what it might mean to follow Christ in the kingdom?
Yeah, I think sometimes we rationalize away what Jesus says. I mean, Jesus tells a young man to go sell everything he has and come and follow him. And we go, well, he doesn't really mean that. What he means is we need to just commit ourselves to him. Well, Jesus is calling for radical commitment, giving ourselves wholly to God. And so, I think it's the concrete teaching of Jesus that we need to take to heart.
And we have to read it in context. That is the one time that a person is told to sell everything that they have. So it doesn't necessarily mean that all Christians need to sell everything that they have and go do something. But your point is, we can't simply write that off as kind of idealism. We've got to grapple with what is the implication of that for the way that we live today.
If that's what that young man needed to do, what do I need to do? And it's going to be just as radical. Maybe not the precise application, but I need to be sold out, whatever that means in my life. For that young man, it meant the things that were his gods were his possessions, were his things. What are my gods? What are the things that keep me from giving myself wholly to God? And so it's radical, and it should challenge each of us to reassess the way the world's values have come and impacted us.